What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA show, and we are back after an action-packed weekend. I don't mean action-packed just because of UFC 314, which was incredible. The main card was amazing, and I can't wait to talk about it. But I mean action-packed because Justin and I were also commentating for Fusion Fight League. We were back in Montana, this time in Great Falls, and that was a great card. But it was pretty crazy because as soon as the fights finished, we jumped in the car and jumped on our phones to watch the end of Paddy the Baddy versus Michael Chandler. And then we caught I caught part of the main event at the after party, watched the rest of it on my phone eventually, but Justin saw the whole thing at the bar. It was incredible. We can't wait to talk about it. Justin, what time did you get back home yesterday?
Man, I got back early. I had an early flight. Richie always looks book that early flight. I think I got back to Vegas at like 10 a.m. yesterday.
Can you try to get the mic closer, by the way, to your mouth a little bit? It's a little echoey. All right. So we got Tehran that says, what's going on? I said, wait, we said,
no,
yo?
that was me. That was me.
Oh.
That was me.
I was like, hey, what's going on? All right, cool. Yeah, so we are back and we're going to jump right in to this card. We got a bunch of things to talk about, crazy things to talk about. So let's start at the top. I think I'm guessing this was your favorite fight of the night. This was my second favorite fight of the night, but let me have you take it because I know you're such a Volk fan. You had thought that Diego Lopes was going to get it done. You were worried about Volk's chin, but instead Volk showed that he still got it. He must have done the right recovery, the right preparation, and he came in just looking, I think, better than ever. I've heard some people say that maybe they thought he slowed down just a tinge. I mean, I couldn't tell, but let me let you take it from the top.
Man, let me tell you, the king is back. Volkanovski looked like vintage Volkanovski, and I say vintage because it's been a long time since we've seen him in the winner's circle, and taking those 3 losses in a row, Islam, Ilya, like devastating knockout. Man, I love to see a resurgence of a guy like Alexander Volkanovski, and we saw it at UFC 314. Man, he looked sharp, he looked clean. Excuse me, I'm battling a cold here, guys. I got a bad deep chest cold. But didn't want to miss this show because we got so many great things to talk about. But Volkanovski, man, just a legend of the sport, a legend in the UFC, a legend in the division. I couldn't be happier for him, man. And, as we're sitting with Shea O'Neal, in that back room watching the fights, talking with Shea, very experienced professional MMA fighter, professional fighter. And it's just really cool to watch both of these guys try to implement their game plan. And, in the video that I made yesterday, talking about, I feel that Volkanovski and Diego had a very similar game plan. And just to see Volkanovski come out, they both hurt each other through and through. And, Volkanovski to the cream rises to the top, guys. And for him to come out on top after a 5-round war. And when I say war, I mean war. These guys weren't playing patty cake. These guys weren't, they were in each other's face. Diego Lopes was putting his hands down, flexing at him, telling him to wave and point at the center. Like, it just was a fight to remember. And I tell you what, I like Diego Lopes before this. And one of the things I was talking about, if you remember at the bar, we're at Halftime Sports Bar and Grill after the Fusion Fight League. I always like to compare, my opponents. The toughest guy I ever fought in my entire life was in the UFC, and his name is Gavin Tucker. And Diego Lopes fought Gavin Tucker and submitted him in the first round. The way Diego Lopes handled Gavin Tucker and knowing how tough Gavin Tucker is, man, the guy is something special. And for Volkanovski to go in there and do what he did, 5-round war, man, I couldn't be happier for the guy.
It was incredible. Couldn't be happier either. And this is one of the things where I said I was going to be happy either way it went, but this was the outcome that I preferred. I don't know what it was about Volk coming back. Volk's just such a likable guy. Plus he's been through so much. And he now is the first ever under 155 to come back and regain the title after losing it. So that's historic right there. So the whole story is incredible. Let me just go through a couple comments here. Johnny Monday says, what's up, boys? Izzy Slot says, 2 dads. Are we the 2 dads? I don't know. And then Tarot says, I was in Miami at UFC 314. Shook hands with Dom Reyes. I love Dominick Reyes. What a legend. What a fight. What a finish. We're going to talk about Dominick Reyes later in the show and what's next for him. I've been listening to MMA all morning on the flights. I'm listening to the Ariel Helwani show, weighing every single podcast, just covering this fight card because I thought it was one of the coolest UFC events that I don't know, maybe the top 10 or top 15 or something that I've ever seen. Somewhere in there. It was phenomenal. I loved it. I don't know how to rank it, but it was amazing. Izzy Slot says 3 loses to 2 GOATs. And Johnny Monday says, amen, Justin, the king is back. Volk is the man. Johnny Monday, by the way, is somebody who's definitely picking Khamzat Chimaev over DDP. He's very impressed. No, I'm just playing. Johnny Monday disagrees with me. I'm just messing. And then we've got Tehran saying Volkanovski versus Movsar. Oh, yeah, that's what everybody's saying, that Movsar Evloev is going to be next for Volkanovski. Justin, there has been some criticism that I've been hearing from mostly not all fighters, but some fighters saying, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Chael Sonnen, but somebody said that when Diego Lopes looks back on this fight, he's going to be disappointed in his performance because he was coming in too boxing heavy and he was just basically wasn't playing the game effectively, strategically enough. Do you agree, or do you think, because I haven't heard a lot of people say it, I've heard a few people say that.
Listen, Diego Lopes went out there and did his thing, man. That is a fight that is going to be remembered. And as a fighter, it's, when you get to those moments and you get to fight a great like Volkanovski, man, like, dude, this fight's going to be talked about for a long time, man. And people are going to be bringing up years from now, like, hey, remember that time Volk fought Diego Lopes? This was a knockdown, drag him out fight, man. And, people are like, oh, he should have mixed in his wrestling better. He should have done this. He should have done that. You know what? Sit down, boys. When you guys are fighting for the world championship, then you have an opinion, But I'll tell you what, Diego Lopes looked phenomenal. And I'll tell you as well, when he got hurt early in the fight, like I thought that he was going to wilt, but he didn't. And that's something that even made me like Diego Lopes more. He was eating those shots from Volkanovski, coming forward, putting his hands down, flexing in his face. Man, Volkanovski is a killer. Diego Lopes is a killer. Hindsight's 2020. You know what I mean? Like you should have bobbed when you should have weaved. Like, yeah, of course he can look back and things. But regret is not. You can't use the word regret because he's in there for the UFC championship. Now, if he would have shot, if he was winning the fight, say he had 4 rounds and shot in. Oh, let's talk about Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen, you're winning the against Anderson Silva 4-0. You take him down, you get triangled. Do you regret taking it to the ground? You know what I mean? Like I think it's just, when you're in the heat of the moment, or Justin James, when you're fighting Charles Rosa, you have him rocked on his feet and you shoot in. Yeah, sure, we regret it, but it's not like when you talk about these kind of fights, and Diego Lopes versus Volkanovski is going to go down as one of the all-time greats. Volkanovski's been in so many bangers. I don't think Diego's going to regret anything because he knows that he showed the world who he is and what he really is capable of doing. Man, and Diego Lopes is he is a championship caliber fighter, and he proved that to the world. I don't think, and I hope he doesn't have any regret going forward in this fight. I'm sure in some interviews he's going to say he wished he'd done this different, or that different. But at the end of the day, it was an incredible fight, and he fought one of the baddest guys in the whole world, man, and he looked great.
And maybe even having regret, and you're the fighter, so you know better than me, but maybe even having regret might be the wrong mindset. So, for example, in my life, I always think about decisions that I've made. Let's say you might hurt somebody along the way based on decisions that you make. Of course, you wish that that hadn't happened, right? But the point of regret is kind of pointless because you can't go back in time. So you just try and learn and adapt and hope you don't make those same mistakes in the future. And I imagine that's the proper, correct mindset. Potentially, it's all good. That's probably the proper, correct mindset for a fighter, just like anybody in life. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to go back to Volkanovski. After this, I want to talk about what's next for Diego Lopes because that's really exciting. A lot of people are saying Yair Rodriguez after we saw that beef unfolded during the presser, which would be an amazing fight. Let's go. I think that might be next for UFC Noche is what people are speculating. But let's go back to Volkanovski. You mentioned Diego Lopes showing his grit and toughness. What about Volk? I think it was I can't remember if it was the end of round 3 or round 4 where Volk got battered and he was on the run. And what happened is in between rounds, if you guys remember which round that was, whether it was round 3 or round 4, in between rounds, he was running, and so people weren't sure what happened. Was he hurt? It was his eye injured badly. Maybe the commentating team thought maybe he had an occipital fracture. Instead, it was that his vision was gone. So for whatever reason, he couldn't see clearly. Maybe it was blurred, whatever, from the shock of a strong hit. And he still fought on. And then at the end of that break, he goes, yo, my vision's finally coming back. And then he went in. And I think that he then finished the 5th round very strong and won. What's your takeaway from statements like that? And basically, I guess, being blinded to some extent for part of the fight and still fighting on like a legend.
I mean, it's what you do when you're fighting at that level. I mean, okay, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to flip it back at you. Are you surprised? Like, or is this like, oh my God, I can't believe he did this? We're talking about Alexander Volkanovski. We're talking about the baddest featherweight, arguably, in the history of the sport. How can that surprise you? Stab this motherfucker in the eye with a knife, and he's still going to fight, dude. He doesn't care if he gets poked. He doesn't care if he can't see. Put a blindfold around this guy. This guy will fight with a blindfold on. He is the baddest guy in the world, man. He's one of the baddest men in the world. He does not care. He doesn't care if he's compromised. He's there to put on a show. He's there to entertain the fans. He's there to be the UFC champion. Nothing Alexander Volkanovski does in or out of the cage surprises me because he does everything perfect. He is the ultimate fighter.
I mean, and that's fair. You make a great point. I like that emphatic support of Alexander Volkanovski. It's just for non-fighters or fans like me, it blows my mind. Dude, I get a little blurry-eyed. I'd be like, I'm good. I'm out. Like verbal tap. But yeah, it's just crazy to me. And then he goes back and he gets it and he's so happy. It was when I think back about my initial thoughts of I would be happy for either fighter if they win. In retrospect, I'm so happy that it worked out the way it did because again, we can see Diego Lopes come back, still get a fight, right? and now in this case, we see Volkanovski achieve a historic achievement and continue on that reign as long as he wants. And I think it was the perfect ending. So very, very cool. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. Like this is unrelated to the fight, but you see Western. I figured out how to look at all the comments so I can follow as we go. I guess I'm on the left side instead of the right. They want to switch back. I guess
I didn't even know how this goes. Wait, I think I can do it. I'm going to try. But yeah, okay, wait.
I didn't realize it.
I didn't even notice either. I think because Justin joined first, maybe. I'm not sure exactly how that happened. But hey, it is what it is. We're switching it up. Left goes to right and vice versa. Okay, we got a couple of comments. So there's a funny one from Western. Here's what Izzy Slot says. When he was blinded, he's talking about Volk. When he was blinded. So I don't know if it was an eye scrape because he started backing up. Okay, tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. But they showed the point where the glove went across and scraped his eye, but seemed still fine. After that, there was a heavy shot. I can't remember if it was a hook, but I think it was an uppercut that went boom that caught Volk's. And I think after that, his vision was rocked. But anyways, after that eye scrape, he was still winning the exchanges while going backwards too. Yeah, that's so crazy. What a just absolute animal. Johnny Mundy says, LMAO, you're my favorite Khamzat fan. He likes to mess with me. He thinks DDP is going to win. We shall see. Tuesday, that fight will be announced. We're going to talk about that later. And then we've got a couple other comments. Weston says, what's up to Tehran? And last but not least, Tehran says, did you guys see we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Kobe. We are definitely talking about Kobe. That was ridiculous. I'm making a whole separate video on that later tonight. Okay, let's come back to this fight. Now let's talk about Diego Lopes. What do you want to see next for him? I already voiced my opinion. I would love to see him fight Yair Rodriguez, who I'm also a massive fan of. What do you want for him?
Is there another fight for him? Yair Rodriguez, of course, Yair Rodriguez, man. They're getting heated up at the press conference, and dude, that's the only fight to make. I mean, Diego Lopes, man, I am such a Diego Lopes fan. You know what I think it is? I think it's because he can grow his hair so cool. And he can really do whatever he wants, and I just can't, man. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, I think I'm such a Diego Lopes fan just because of how he can grow his hair, and he looks so cool when he does it. He does like the comb over, and it's like, man, sometimes I wish I could do that, man. And he's such a tough guy, and man, he's such a great fighter. His English, he doesn't speak very good English, but there's a lot of fighters I'm coming around that don't speak English. Not Khamzat.
Charles Oliveira.
No, not Charles Oliveira. Fucking light heavyweight. Oh my gosh, Alex Pereira. Like, he was probably my first guy. Like, I really didn't like following fighters that didn't speak English, not because I thought they were bad fighters, just because when you can't relate to somebody, it's just really tough. But here's Diego Lopes, man, speaking Spanish. And, I can't understand what he's saying most of the time, but I tell you what, I'm a big fan of him, and I'm starting to be drawn over to those guys that can't speak English, but they're trying, man. And I think my respect to them is I go to Spain once a year. I'm going to Spain here again in June. And when I go there, it's like, it's so hard to learn a new language, man. And just to have even common conversation and to see these guys, putting in the work in the gym for their fights, making sure they're on weight and trying to learn a new language on top of that to gain fans. It says to me that they care so much about the fans and the sport. And I'm starting to get behind that.
By the way, I do want to mention, I've listened to multiple I know maybe he didn't in the cage speak it, or he was interviewed, but I think he used a translator, but I've heard him in multiple interviews with no translator, just straight up speaking in English and responding in English. So I know he's been working on it. Massive respect. And again, John Morgan and I talked about this last Friday, which was an epic show. If you guys hadn't checked it out, meeting and talking to and having an hour-long show with journalists that I've been watching for years that I have the utmost respect for, was a dream come true. But we talked about the fact that Diego Lopes has been working on his English, and we do appreciate it, even though we feel kind of selfish by even wanting that, right? As native English speakers, why don't we go learn Spanish, right? You could make that argument, but we both appreciate it, and I think it does help us connect with them better. By the way, Justin, you mentioned being jealous of Diego Lopez's hair. Have you heard of Goose Wayne? This guy, he has long hair, but he just grows it out on the sides and the back like a legend.
Dude, I might have to do that. Like, that's the worst part. Like, as I get older, it only grows around here, and it's starting to get gray. So unfortunately, I gotta keep it short.
Rock it like Goose Wayne, because he also puts in the highlights. He goes all out. He's amazing. I'll show you some of his videos. He is hilarious, a hilarious YouTuber. Okay, let's keep it moving because we got a million topics to cover. We got a plethora of topics to cover. You said that in our cold open, and somebody commented on you using the
it's like I didn't realize that. Like, guys, I'm not a retard. Like, I do have some words I know. Like, I'm not as dumb as most people think. I mean, I do have CTE. I tell you what, and I'm going to make a video about this, the pros and cons of MMA. It's one of my biggest downfalls, and it's so embarrassing. I can't remember people's names, man. There's people that, like, I'll work with for 5 years, and then one day I just won't remember the name. Whitley, there's this girl at the gym. Her name is Whitley. She was walking through the gym the other day. I'm looking at her. I'm like, I have no idea what her name is. And I had to actually look her up on Instagram to figure out what her name is. And it's like, I've known this girl for 100 years, or I have this private, his name is David, and I've been calling him Ryan for months. And it's not because I don't care. It's just because I'm serious. I think CTE is kicking in, man. And it's only getting worse, unfortunately.
I actually don't think that's what it is. I also have difficulty, or maybe I have some too, who knows, but I doubt it. But I think it's just, so I have a difficulty remembering names for whatever reason. My brain turns off. But here's the thing. When I interviewed a long time ago, I used to have a podcast, an education-based podcast, and I interviewed one of the world champions in memory competitions. And these guys it's not that they have extremely strong memories. What it is they engage the visual parts of their brain when trying to remember certain things. They'll make what's called a house of memory, essentially. So if they're trying to remember like 70 or 80 different things, they'll imagine themselves going into a house, and then on the wall over here is item number 1. Then they look at the table, there's item number 2, so on and so forth. My point is if you use some association or some visual association with the names, or some mnemonic or something, I bet you'd remember. You just have to probably use those tools. I have the same issue, and when I do use those tools, they really help. Wait, we got a slew of comments from MGal4 Productions. Let's throw these up here before we move on.
Dab Snake, a new watcher.
Yes, Dab Snake is back. LOL, not the CTE. You're good, Justin. Exactly. Jean Silva will KO. What? I heard people talking about John Silva, or saying that they want John Silva next versus Aljo. I mean, I don't know about that, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. I was at the fights. MGal Productions was at the fights. No way. That's incredible. And yeah, I'm not surprised it smelled like weed. And then we also have Chandler. Chandler. Okay. Speaking of Michael Chandler, Paddy the Baddy has arrived. Let's get into it. This was my favorite fight of the night by a landslide. Not only because I bet on Paddy, that was just a small bet. I also bet on Bryce, and I lost. We'll talk about that in a minute. This fight was his coming out party. He basically is on the scene. He is blown up. He is legit. I thought he looked incredible. You said everybody Extreme Couture was picking Michael Chandler to win, and boy, oh boy, Paddy not only won. First of all, I heard on the judges' scorecards that Paddy lost round 1. I watched the fight twice. I rewatched it on the plane. Paddy did not lose round 1. That is insane. He was taken down with no damage. In fact, he landed, I think, 3 brutal elbows while Chandler was on his back. Also, Chandler landed several shots to the back of the head during that fight. We're going to get into the fouls later, but I was blown away by Paddy. So dominant, looked so clean. I loved everything I saw. He's for real, and it's so darn exciting. I made a video about it Saturday night. It's so darn exciting. I cannot wait to see him and see who he's going to be matched up against next. Justin, though, let me turn over to you. What were your thoughts and takeaways of this fight?
Man, I tell you what, listening to Josh Thompson, you sent me that video that you broke down going into this fight. Like a lot of guys, the only thing I didn't agree with Josh Thompson, he says that Paddy's more explosive than Mike Chandler. I don't know about that. But with that being said, dude, he dominated him in every aspect of the fight, and Josh Thompson, it was, at plus money, I thought Mike Chandler is the way to go here. I saw him at plus 140, plus 150. And I remember thinking in my head, well, if this gets up to like plus 175, plus 200, like I need to put some money on it. But then when you sent me that video of Thompson's breakdown of why Paddy's going to win, I didn't bet the fight at all, man. It's like, it was so convincing. He had such a great argument of, wrestling being a perishable skill. And I can understand that, man. Being 35 years old, although I wrestle all the time in the gym and, you look at my fights, like I just haven't incorporated my wrestling at all. And I feel Mike Chandler's the same way because boxing and striking is just so much easier and so much less taxing on the gas tank than trying to get in there and grind and grapple. So, Josh Thompson swayed me, man. Paddy Pimblett is man, I think he's the truth right now.
He's the truth.
He's, I was always very suspect to him. I didn't really care for him early on. I thought he was just a hype train, and he was, but I think his training's dialed in. He has his weight under control. His diet's under control. Man, I'm sold. I'm sold on him. And I think he is the real deal. Do I think he's a champion yet? No. Do I think he beat Islam Makhachev yet? No. Do I think he beat Dustin Poirier? No. But I tell you what, if you guys saw the video that I made yesterday, Charles Oliveira versus Paddy Pimblett is the fight to make. And I really think that, because leading up to this Michael Chandler fight, both Paddy, both Charles have, they just beat Mike Chandler. Neither of them could submit him. Paddy finished him. And Charles didn't, but to see this Scottish guy go in there and they're talking about how great his grappling is, to me, Charles Oliveira is one of the best grapplers, not only in the UFC or not only in the lightweight division, but in the entirety of the UFC. I think he's one of the best grapplers. I would love to see Paddy Pimblett put his skill against Charles Oliveira. Now, if he goes in there and outclasses Charles Oliveira like he did Mike Chandler, give this man a title shot and let's go.
So you don't think Paddy could beat Dustin Poirier?
I don't think so. I think Dustin Poirier's boxing is way too good. And, people talk about being unorthodox, Paddy Pimblett being unorthodox. I think Dustin Poirier will have all the answers. I think he's too technical. I think he'll watch his unorthodox style through a fight camp and find holes. And I just think he's too smart. I think he's too smart. He's not a spastic fighter. Like Mike Chandler is an explosive spastic fighter. Like he's just going to come at you. Like Dustin Poirier is calm, cool, collective. He's very calculated. Like he goes against Conor McGregor, knowing that, hey, stay away from this left hand, stay away from that left hand. That's what you have to avoid when you fight Conor McGregor, and a lot of idiots that, like Mike Chandler, like Eddie Alvarez, not Mike Chandler who fought Conor, but Eddie Alvarez, who's similar to Mike Chandler, is going to get clipped by that right hand. The left hand is coming. It's coming. But I think Dustin Poirier is just too smart, and he's too slick for Paddy Pimblett. I think Charles Oliveira is the way to go.
Okay, I want to highlight this comment here from Izzy Slot. So this is very interesting. I look at a lot of film, and one of the biggest things to look for someone of the guys that haven't peaked and are still there early in their career is how much they improve each fight, right? And that goes to Paddy, and everybody's saying that, including Paddy himself, saying how much work he's been putting in and how much he's improved since the Jared Gordon fight, and then again after the King Green fight, and then again after the Ferguson fight. So the improvements keep continuing and continuing. Now, I want to talk about two things in particular. So First, man, oh man, one thing that I love to hear at the end of the fight was Paddy not talking about his skills per se, but more talking about his fight IQ, saying he believes him and his team, I think, together, they have the highest fight IQ in the UFC next to after John Jones. And I love that. And then if you take that, I think that's so incredible to me, because you can see people look at him and Paddy kind of think he's like an entertaining guy, a guy you laugh at or laugh with, I should say, because he's just funny and he's got those lines. But he's a real thinking man, and he's really game planning. Now, that makes me very excited, because I believe that means he will be highly successful. But check this out. In real time, he said he game planned for this fight. Now, did you notice the type of strikes he was throwing? For example, Chandler, every time when he was coming in, would always dip his head, right? That's how he eventually caught him with that knee. He timed it perfectly. He had dipped in right before, and I think he tried to get him with the uppercut. And the next time he dipped in, boom, he hit him with the knee really hard. And he was throwing those uppercuts a lot. On top of that, when he got on top, did you notice the 12-6 elbows are back in play? He was hammering Michael Chandler. Those 12-6 elbows actually scared me, because he beat Chandler up so badly. I mean, they had to rush him to the hospital, which I don't know when the last time I've seen Chandler getting rushed and not even being able to like stand next to the ref. But anyways, all of this stuff was crazy to me. I mean, tell me, what did you see from your perspective in terms of Paddy's strikes in combination with that phenomenal game plan?
Man, the ground and pound was the most impressive thing to me. Paddy's pressure, very impressive. I mean, I'm just going to be straight, and I'm humble and confident enough to say, man, like, he proved me wrong in every aspect. I just couldn't see him doing what he did to Mike Chandler prior to the fight, man. I'm humble and strong enough to say that, man, I was wrong. And, you know, that's the thing with MMA that's a beautiful thing about MMA. It's like, you read things on paper and you see things on paper and you see things in film. It's like, I can't see it going that way. And then when it goes that way, man, hats off to Paddy. He looked great. There was nothing. I mean, it was just the best he's ever looked. The way he's improved from fight to fight to fight to fight. Like when he fought, Jordan Levitt, I was like, he doesn't look that great. When he fought Luigi, I didn't think he looked that great. I mean, that's honestly, like, I think that early in his career, debut to his first 3 fights in the UFC, this is a matchup that I would have wanted. This is I would have loved the matchup. I thought I think with my brawler mentality and, my wrestling and grappling, like, I just couldn't see, I think it would have been a very competitive fight. But now, 5 years later, dude, Paddy's the one, man. He just manhandled Michael Chandler. And I think Mike Chandler is a shell of his former self, but he's still tough. And he's still explosive, and he's still dangerous, and he still fights, and regardless, even though he's lost 4 or 5 in a row, like, he still knows how to knock people out, man. And Paddy went in there and just embarrassed him.
Speaking of Michael Chandler, let's move on to him. And we got to talk about some of the things that Chandler did before we get into the cheating stuff and the fouls that he committed, which I don't know. I really can't wait to get your thoughts on it. But speaking of Chandler and him maybe not looking as sharp as he's looked in the past, or maybe losing some motivation, I have heard Beneil Dariush this morning, and again, Josh Thompson, both talk about how Chandler just looked like he wasn't giving it his all. He did not seem doubt. He seemed checked out, is what everybody was saying. They also made a comment that when he was being talked to by his corner, he seemed zoned out as well, like he wasn't looking his corner in the eyes, something like that. Again, that's something that you would know more about than me as a non-fighter. But a lot of folks are saying that this is it. Chandler was basically just in there for a payday, and that's what they were judging based on the way he was fighting. Do you feel, and I know you're never one to say that somebody should retire, but did you get that feeling that he was sort of phoning it in and was just showing up, but not really taking advantage of every opportunity to, say, for example, get out from underneath when he was on bottom, or really lay in on the striking and the combos?
I can sit here and talk about this all day because I'm there. You know what I mean? You get put in a compromise, you start losing, you put in compromising positions. It's like, oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go again. Oh, we're on bottom again. Let's save some energy. Man. It's like, I feel for Michael Chandler, man. He's at the end of his career. I never give my opinion when I think people should retire, because it's not up to me to tell. I do not think Mike Chandler is going to retire. If he would have retired right there in the cage. But I do think he should start looking for another job somewhere else. I don't think he can compete at the highest level in the UFC anymore. I think his next fight's probably going to be against a guy that's unranked if they don't cut him now. The thing with Mike Chandler, though, is he is exciting. You know, regardless if he's fighting Paddy Pimblett, if he's fighting Justin Gaethje, if he's fighting Charles Oliveira, all his fights are exciting. So people do tune in. So the UFC does have that. I think if they don't cut him, I don't think they're going to, but if they don't, I think that they're going to give him a guy that's not ranked, that has some momentum moving up. And Mike Chandler's probably going to be ranked like 13th, 14th, maybe even 15th now. They're going to give him somebody that they want to skyrocket into the rankings because, yes, Mike Chandler has lost his mojo. He realizes that he will never be the UFC champion. And I don't care what he says during his interview. As a fighter, as a fighter that still competes, we're not idiots. All right. And although when we talk in interviews like, oh, I want to be the UFC champ, or, you know, guy will lose 3 times in a row and be like, oh, I'm still going for gold. And it's like, well, are you though? Are you though? You know, and you'll get opportunities, you know, for instance, my opportunity to get back to the UFC was to win in Tough Enough last year in Last Man when I got knocked out. Like, that was my opportunity, dude. I'm going to have to win 5, 6, 7 fights in a row against young guys, young killers, to even having a chance back at that. So, you know, obviously we all want to compete at the highest level, but Mike Chandler's done, you know, going for gold. I think that he has a couple fights left in him. Maybe one fight if the UFC lets him, and it's going to be against an unranked guy. And I know the UFC isn't going to do him good and be like, oh, let's send Mike out on a win, because, I mean, realistically, he hasn't done anything in the division. He's 2-5.
2-6, I think.
2-6. Like, okay, even worse. Like, man, they brought him over from Bellator. He was an exciting fighter, but at the end of the day, like Sean Shelby told me, hey, Justin, we love you, but you got to win. And at the end of the day, Mike Chandler isn't winning.
So speaking of Chandler, and of course, maybe we'll see what happens with the UFC. Will he take another fight? Will he take another 2 fights? Who knows? Will he stick around longer? I guess time will tell. I actually don't think he's going to drop that far in the rankings, but I wouldn't be surprised 10 or 11.
I really like this. I'm going to show a comment here if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
I really like that. Jim Miller would be
Bobby
awesome.
Green. Oh, Jim Miller.
I would rather see Jim Miller. I just like Jim Miller so much. Bobby Green he's on his way out too, man. He's been getting finished a lot lately. Jim Miller, on the other hand, dude, this guy is like somebody I've never seen before. Like this guy is an anomaly. And for those that get to watch Jim Miller at the end of his career now, 40 fights in the UFC, and like, you guys can't begin to imagine the respect I have for Jim Miller, just because this guy shows up and he's not losing every fight. He's in his early 40s and he's still winning fights. Just fought against Chase Hooper, and Chase Hooper is a stud. It's a great fight, but man, I would love to see Chandler versus Jim Miller.
Well, we shall see if that is the fight that the UFC makes. By the way, I do want to give a shout out to Big Ankh. Big Ankh is back. He's been commenting a bunch. UFC loves Chandler. He won't retire anytime soon. We shall see. We got to talk about the cheating though. This really bothered me. So I made my video talking about Chandler and all these I was about to say allegations, but they're not allegations. They're fouls, blatant fouls that have happened while he's being filmed, and people have reviewed them over and over. We saw recently against Charles Oliveira, the hand in the mouth against Dustin Poirier, the eye poke, and then the subsequent barrage of punches that he threw against Justin Gaethje. And in every instance, he always seems to have an excuse or an explanation as to why he did it or why it wasn't really cheating. And I'm going to make a video at some point diving into all of those explanations, quote unquote. But this time, what happened, and I said I'm anticipating that he is going to foul Paddy in the same way, and he did in the first round, multiple shots to the back of the head when he had Paddy on the ground. But the big one is the soccer kick up the middle. I have never, we talk about groin shots and how, they'll stop time, they may take a point deduction. But at the end of the day, they're never really intentional, but they still happen. They still cause a break in the action, and they still harm the fighter that absorbs that shot. But this one was just one of the most blatant ones. I mean, he was trying to argue that he was throwing a teep. Like, who throws a teep like that? It was like his leg was straight coming up right in the middle. And then he immediately was like, cool. And then when they came back together, he again had an explanation. You could see him going to Paddy. He's like, dude, you were coming in at the same time. You were throwing a kick too. What Paddy was throwing was a leg kick, a roundhouse leg kick, right? So he was coming in from an angle. Mike just went straight up the middle, but again, tried to explain it away. I mean, I think that was blatantly intentional so he could get a breather. Justin, I got to turn over to you as the fighter, because to me, I'm very shocked that any fighter would even do something like that. Like, what's your takeaway?
I mean, as fighters, we all have our code. We all have our call outs and how we can find rest if we need. Now, unfortunately, Mike Chandler's not going to get any breaks because even if it was an accident, due to all his fouls that he's showed over the years, it's like crying wolf. He's not catching any breaks. So even if it was an accident, nobody's going to believe him that was an accident.
Paddy, by the way, Paddy said he went back when he was trying to get himself composed and back together. He said, "Cheating bastard." He said that.
It's Mike Chandler, man. I mean, what do you expect? We said it before the fight. Paddy even said he was going to talk to the referee before the fight, and make sure he watches out for these fouls. Again, it's just, I hate using the word cheating just because it sounds whiny, but he's definitely one of the dirtiest fighters in the UFC, let alone the lightweight division, but the whole UFC as a total.
It's cheating, dude. Listen, I've been to enough Fusion Fight League events where I've been to the fighter meetings. I go to every single fighter meeting. They all the refs warn the fighters in there. Nick Barons is the one that always says, he is also a ref for the UFC as well. He always says that if he, like, for example, an eye poke, if your hands are outstretched, he's going to immediately take a point. There's no warning. There's none of this, right? It causes damage and you've been warned now. And if that happens, you need a point deduction. I just don't, to me, those are the rules that are to be being explained, and he's not following them. Pretty much everybody else is. So I can't get my head around that. On top of it, Justin, what is up with this? Oh, that's your first warning. Next time it's going to be a hard warning. And then the next time it's going to be a point deduction. I don't get this. Why don't they take a point right there? The foul happened. He knows it's illegal. Why?
I'll tell you why. It's because I think regardless to Mike Chandler, most fighters, when they do commit a foul, it's not intentional. So you can't, they don't, if I mean, we're talking about the livelihood of people. We're talking about paychecks of people. So for instance, if you take them, fighters as a mass, as a whole, 95% of fighters, when they commit a foul, it isn't intentional.
Right.
So you don't want to sway or swing the scorecards to the other guy, from a foul that wasn't intentional. Now, if it happens 2 or 3 times, all right, well, now we have to take a point away. When it comes to Mike Chandler, unfortunately for his opposition, that most referees kind of stick by this, and they don't want to change the scorecards because of a foul, because you don't know if it was intentional or not. Now, when it comes to Mike Chandler, I do believe they're intentional, but when you hold a standard going across, you can't say, all right, well, when Huzaifa kicks somebody in the balls, it's an accident. But when Mike Chandler does, we have to take a point away. Then we're getting in a gray area of discrepancy in changing the outcome of fights, not knowing if it was intentional or not. And I don't know, man. It's a tough subject, man. I've been poked in the eye. I've been kicked in the balls. It sucks. I don't think any foul that I've ever received or given has ever been intentional. And I've never lost a point. I've never had a point taken away from. Actually, that's not true. And when I was in India, my opponent grabbed the fence like 3 or 4 times. Legitimately would grab the fence and pull himself up, one hand or 2 hands. Got a warning, got a point taken away, then got disqualified or something like that. I can't remember. And trust me, I was fighting at 185, and I was very, very happy to have that fight over with. But regardless, I mean, you gotta hold the same standard across the line. First one's always a warning. Second one is up for debate. That's why, we joke, and, Izzy Slots is my coach. We joke about, hey, man, if you're tired, you can kick him in the balls once. Make sure it counts so we get a nice he proves that you always get one. And, I mean, it's a running joke in the gym, and we've talked about it, but I've never intentionally done it.
Tehran says, I know from talking about Paddy, but I think he should fight Gaethje at MSG. That would be interesting. I'm down for Paddy to fight anybody in that top 5, but I want, and this is the one thing I'll say, I want Paddy versus Ilya. I want that fight. I know they're talking about Ilya versus Oliveira, or Ilya even still potentially versus Islam. I don't know what's going down. I feel like that's a golden opportunity. Let Ilya come in and fight Paddy. They've had the beef. It is real. They don't like each other. That's the stuff that legendary fights are made of. That's my 2 cents. Probably nobody else agrees with me, but I just want to go on record and say that that's the fight I'd love to make, or I'd love to see. Okay, Justin, we're going to keep it moving because we still have a bunch of topics to talk about. Next, we need Yair versus Diego Lopes next. Tell us why. And while you do this, I'm quickly grabbing my coffee. It just got dropped off. Why do we need this fight? Let's go.
Guys, man, we're talking about Yair Rodriguez, Diego Lopes. Besides the heat at the press conference, I mean, this is only going to build even more animosity towards coming in. Diego Lopes getting his championship chance, unfortunately coming up short for himself. Yair Rodriguez looking phenomenal at UFC 314. This is an easy. I mean, this is a lob pitch up to the UFC. Yair coming up, putting himself in contention for the championship. Diego Lopes, like this. I mean, I don't even need to talk about it because it's so obvious of why this fight needs to happen. Like, it's not even. I feel silly even talking about it because everyone that's watching, you know, we got 10 guys watching on the stream right now. They're like, well, I don't know, what are we talking about this? Obviously, this fight needs to happen. There's animosity at the press conference. Yair won, Diego lost. Give him up for contendership, man. Let them. I love when guys have a problem with each other and they get to go in there and handle it.
Yes, let's go. How do you see it going?
Man, dude, Diego Lopes is so good. And, you know, I always go back to my personal experience of, you know, I mentioned it earlier. I might have said it in the video. I might have said it earlier today. The best guy I have ever fought, Gavin Tucker, technically the best MMA fighter I've ever fought. Striking, grappling, wrestling, the best all-around MMA fighter I've ever fought. And what Diego Lopes did to him was just, I couldn't believe it. And then to see him go against, you know, arguably one of the greatest featherweights of all time, and see how he competed against him, it's hard to go against this guy. Yair Rodriguez, super tough. An incredible fighter. He deserves to be, you know, ranked as high as he is. But man, I think Diego Lopes is on another level. And I think after losing this fight, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. And I'm willing to bet when he comes back next, he's going to look even fucking better. And honestly, it's like, how could he look better? You know, I think some of his reactions were a little slow, like for Volkanovski being able to hit him with a jab. You know, I think with the range, he should have been able to avoid those. But I think he's going to go back and look at that. And, dude, I tell you what, I don't think Diego Lopes has peaked yet. I really don't, man. And I'm going to say it now, and I'm going to say it again until if Diego Lopes loses his next fight, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he's peaked yet. And I think he's even going to come back better in his next fight.
He's only 30, so that would make sense. Now, somebody, yeah, so I agree with it. Now, Big Ankh says, I don't know, I haven't heard this, but this is very interesting if this is true. He said that Yair said he was promised a title shot from Mick Maynard if he won versus Pitbull. I wonder if that's true, but I also wonder if they may persuade him instead. Because I don't know, though, because what about Movsar Evloev? But, like, maybe they can persuade him with a big enough payday to fight Diego Lopes still at UFC Noche, right? That's going to be a massive event. There's going to be so much beef. And Yair Rodriguez has called Diego Lopes a fake Mexican and all this craziness. I don't know. I feel like this fight has to go down. We have to see it. I feel like Diego Lopes is going to have a little bit of the advantage. But, man, do I love watching Yair Rodriguez fight. I love his style. His kicks and everything are crazy. Really, really fun. Okay, well, let's move on to the next topic. The bet that I got so many people clowning me on this one. So I made a whole video about how Bryce Mitchell, I said, flattened John Silva at the presser because I thought he was amazing. The line about the dogs, I put down a lot of dogs in my day. You know what they all have in common? They all squeal right before they die. I was like, what? That was the coldest line of all time. And then they did the face off, and John Silva tried to like bark at him in his face, and Bryce just stayed totally composed. And then we see the fight. Holy smokes. John Silva is so good. Bryce, man, he just, I don't know. It was almost like a mismatch. Justin, let me hear your thoughts on this fight and how it went down.
You know, I had John Silva the whole way. Man, I was like, there's no way Bryce is going to get freaking smoked. I think the odds are exactly where they need to be. But then seeing Bryce Mitchell's confidence and, you know, and he brought religion into the fight, man. And I was just like, Jesus, here we go. He's like, oh, you know, Gene Silva is a demon and he's sending me naked women in my sleep, which is just so stupid to me. It's unreal. But it doesn't matter how I feel about the things he's saying. This idiot believes that shit. Like, he believes that shit. And sometimes when you get that kind of confidence, and whether it's real or fake, whether it's religious based or whether it's whatever based, when you buy into your own belief, like, man, that confidence means something. And I was going to stack $1,000 on Gene Silva coming into this fight, but Bryce Mitchell dominated him at the presser so hard that he prevented me from making money. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. This is why I'm just so bummed out, man. This was a layup shot. And Bryce Mitchell had to come out and have some of the best press conference lines that I've ever heard. And they were so good that they deterred me from winning money. And I'm so sick to my stomach about it, because I had $1,000 I was going to put on Silva to win only a couple $100. But I was like, man, if somehow Bryce comes out there and takes him down and gasses him, because I'll tell you this is a common thing, and Izzy Slots will vouch for this. There's a lot of Brazilians that come through the gym, and a lot of them are very, very tough. They're so explosive and they're so fast. But when they start losing, when they start getting that pressure on them, when they gas, they tend to gas. And I thought in my head, like, well, maybe Bryce can put him up against the fence. Maybe he can take him down and gas him out and beat him in the later rounds. Well, I was wrong. And, unfortunately, I didn't make money off it but I was glad to see that stuff, because, again, bringing religion into that and saying he's a demon and then going out there and, in Bryce's mind, like, in God's plan, that Gene Silva, won in the sense that, in God's plan, he let a demon beat the angel. And I just don't understand it. That's why I don't like bringing religion into this kind of stuff.
What did you think of the way Jean Silva won via submission?
Dude, submission. I did not see that happening. And Bryce unconscious, looking up at the stars. And I feel bad for Bryce, because now this is the second time. And when you get choked unconscious or knocked out and you come back, you don't know what happened. Like usually your first shot is, shit, I got knocked out. So, maybe he thought he was knocked out, but man, I did not see him choking him unconscious there. I did not see that happening. It was probably a great line to bet. I thought he was going to knock him out. I don't think Bryce Mitchell has incredible striking. I thought Gene Silva was going to knock him out, but to go there and go to what Bryce is good at and finish him with a submission, hats off to Gene Silva. And he is incredible. And I tell you what, I'm tuning into all his fights moving forward.
All right, we got a couple comments. So Muttball says, I wanted Bryce to win so badly, but it's not looking good for him in the future, unfortunately. I agree. Johnny Monday has a question for us, but I think it's going to be more a question for you. My one question for today is get your perspectives on Bryce's strategy. Their drama and everything else set aside, I'd like to hear both of your thoughts on my next comment. Here's the next comment. We all knew it was a tough matchup for Bryce, but I truly believe Bryce would have beaten him if he had done what I fully expected. Make it a phone booth fight from the first second. I feel like that would be dangerous. But Justin, you would be the expert on this. Like, what are your thoughts?
I don't think Bryce Mitchell has the power to be in a phone booth style fight. I think Silva would have just knocked him out, man. I think he was too fast, too strong, too explosive. I mean, too everything for Bryce Mitchell. And again, I might be wrong. I don't really know what Bryce Mitchell's strategy was. And if he did even have a strategy, he wasn't able to implement it, man. Silva is the real deal, man. This whole fighting nerds thing, these guys protest. I think they're like 19-0 as combined. It's something insane. I'm buying the Kool-Aid, man. I'm bought in. These guys all are the real deal, man. If you see guys with like nerdy glasses with tape in between on the nose, you better get out of there quick, because these guys are the real deal.
I always mispronounce his first name, Cal Bahalio. That guy, I listened to his interview when he was on Rampage, the Jackson podcast. That guy blew me away. I've been meaning to make a video about him for like 2 weeks. The way that he approaches the fight game just absolutely impressed me, how he's just obsessive about every aspect of it, watching tons and tons of videos of other fighters, other fighting techniques, just constantly being a student, learning, trying to improve. When I saw that interview, and that's why I want to do a separate video on this one day, I just thought, man, one day, I mean, it's going to be tough being in Khamzat's division, but one day he will inevitably be champ, because I don't see how you can stop somebody with that type of work ethic and discipline. So I think he is emblematic of that entire team, and that team is on a tear. Izzy Slots chiming in with some good insights here. Jean Silva had a perfect game plan, hit him with humongous shots, whether they land or not, doesn't matter, forces Bryce to shoot. He went for more than one counter wrestler about as he got the nunja. What's nunja?
Ninja choke.
Oh, ninja choke. Gotcha. Yeah, all right, that makes sense. All right, let's. Well, anyways, it is what it is. I think Bryce Mitchell might be out. In terms of what's next for Jean Silva, I mean, Bryce Mitchell will be back. We'll see who he gets matched up against. But unfortunately, I think he's pretty far away from getting into the top 10 or any sort of title run at this point. But talking about Jean Silva, one of the things that I've heard people say is they'd like to see him fight somebody like Aljamain Sterling. What do you think? Do you think that's an insult to Aljo, or do you think that actually makes sense?
For Bryce Mitchell to fight Aljamain Sterling?
No, not Bryce Mitchell. No, Jean Silva.
No, man, I think that's a great matchup. Aljamain,
Yeah.
man, bantamweight, former bantamweight champion going up to middleweight, featherweight. I think what's his record at featherweight right now? 0-1. I think he lost his featherweight debut. It's a great time. It's a great gatekeeper fight. And if Silva can get up there and beat a former UFC champion, I mean, that's going to put him right in title contention, man. Like, this guy is the real deal. And depending on what if Aljamain takes him down and he subs it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that would really Aljamain, a guy that I train with, a guy that I personally know, a guy that I have confided in. Him and I both had neck surgery. We had the same neck surgery here. So Aljamain Sterling and I, built a pretty strong relationship because I was able to call him or talk to him about that. So I think that would be an incredible matchup, man. And going up to featherweight is so good for him. The weight cut isn't nearly as hard. Aljamain is a machine in the gym, on the mat, in the cage. I would love to see that matchup.
Yeah, I guess now that I'm looking at the rankings too, it looks like Bryce Mitchell's ranked 13th. So I imagine Jean Silva will go up maybe to 12 or 11. Who knows with the way he won it. So it wouldn't be that far apart in the rankings. So that would make sense. I'd love to see that. And we shall see how it goes down. Just a couple comments, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. Big Onk says a guy that can beat Silva is someone with power like, Arnold Allen. Very interesting. Bryce is a grappler, not a striker. Yes, of course, we know that. And then last one from Johnny Monday. Justin, I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially on my last comment before you move on. My comment about, let me pull up his comment. So he said, he wanted from from Bryce Mitchell. He wanted constant clinch, knees, body shots, wearing on his head and neck. Prime Kane and Prime Chael are perfect examples. Trips, stick on him and make it a grind. No distance. I truly believe it would have worked. What do you think?
Man, it's tough, man. It's easy for us to sit back and say, well, what would have worked or what we think should have worked. But I tell you what, grabbing on to someone like Silva is as fast and as powerful as him, especially, just working clinch stuff, it's tough. And I really don't think Bryce is exceptional in the clinch. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm definitely not saying he's bad, but I'm not saying that's not what he's known for, man. I mean, I can't think of a lot of fights to where he got in the clinch and won or knocked somebody out in the clinch. I see what you mean by slowing Silva down. You put the heat on the Brazilian, try to gas him out, use all that, waste all his energy. But again, getting into that range, trying to grab onto somebody, it's a lot tougher and a lot of people think. Like my buddy Aaron, who, the professional gambler, like, he says the most ridiculous things sometimes. People are like, why doesn't he just take him down? It's that easy. It's that easy. It's that easy. It's not that easy. It's not that easy just to grab onto somebody. And, and when you got guys like Kane and Chael Sonnen, this is a long time ago. Since Kane and Chael Sonnen, like, the sport has evolved so much. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, I like this question as well, because a lot of times when I fought, people are like, well, you want to lock me down and slow me up. But, even anytime I get clinched, it's very easy to get out of, especially when you're sweaty, because it's very hard to hold on to people, man. And it could have worked. It definitely could have worked. But I tell you what, it would have been very, very, I think it would have been, man, holding on to him would have been like trying to hold on to a greased pig, man. Holding on to his head with how strong and fast and sweaty they are in there. I mean, from a paper standpoint, yeah, it makes sense. And I agree with you. But to get in there and actually do it in the UFC under the lights, it's a lot harder done than said.
Fair enough. Okay. So Johnny, I hope you appreciated those comments. Let us know what you thought about Justin's response. We got to move on to the man who opened the main card in dominant fashion. People were calling it a knockout similar to Conor McGregor versus Aljo, as we saw Krylov basically coming forward and just bop. Dominick Reyes, just that picture perfect shot, catching him and just dropping him. And that was all she wrote. Dominick Reyes is back. Everybody is just celebrating him, congratulating him, giving him a pat on the back after all of the adversity he's gone through. I'm going to pull up his record right now, and we're going to talk through all his crazy long road back to just being a pure legend in the light heavyweight division. But Justin, what was your thoughts on this amazing, amazing fight and outcome?
When you see a resurgence from somebody like Dominick Reyes, man, I saw a crazy stat of his record from this year to this year and then now and on. And man, when you have lost so much and, people start doubting you and you start doubting yourself, man, when you start to lose, you start to doubt yourself. How many losses do you have in a row? Like 4 in a row?
4, right there.
4 losses in a row. Like, people don't respect these resurgence enough, man. And as a fighter that's lost a lot lately, man, to lose, because losing and winning both are the same in the sense of snowball effect. The more you win, the more confidence you build, and the more things you feel you're doing right. And the same thing when you lose. When you lose, you find yourself in compromising positions. Here we are again. And again, I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking from what you told me or what Brad Tavares told me or what Eric Nixick told me or Dennis Davis or Roman Isbell. I'm speaking from my experience. When you start to lose, it's so easy to just be derailed over and over. And to see a resurgence like Dominick Reyes lose 4 fights in a row. He's on the cutting block, getting cut from the UFC. The injuries he's had to persevere through. To get back to where he's in now, he's won 3 in a row and just such a dramatic knockout. Dominick Reyes is the man, and MMA fans need to respect guys that hit resurgence like this a lot more, because I tell you what, it's one of the hardest things to do. It's like an elite running back coming back. Okay, let's talk about Aiden Hutchinson. He had a compound fib fracture, earlier this year for the Detroit Lions defensive player, one of the best defensive player in the league, in my opinion. And this year, he has a chance to hit a resurgence after that compound fracture. Is he going to be the same guy? Time will tell. When it comes to Dominick Reyes, is he the same guy after 4 losses? He's better than ever. And he looked incredible in his fight, and I cannot wait to see what's next.
Well, that's what he said in the octagon. They said, man, I think Joe Rogan said, Dominick Reyes is back. He's like, no, I'm not back. I'm better. That's what he said. I love that confidence. By the way, it's not just about the losses. I don't know if you know the full story of Dominick Reyes, but he had something called a deep vein thrombosis, which was blood clots in his leg. And he actually went through an incredible ordeal. He said it brought him closer to, I think, his girlfriend or fiance, as well as closer to God, in his own words. And he said he was lucky to be alive. It was a life-threatening situation. He nearly died. So forget about coming back as a fighter. There was a point where his life was on the line, and he wasn't sure if he was going to keep going on. But he's not only gone on, he's come back with this amazing resurgence. Now, people are talking about what's next for him. I'm going to tell you a couple of the names that I've heard, and one of them is in the comments, so I'll start with that. Actually, 2 of them are in the comments now. So first, Tehran says Dom Reyes versus Carlos Ulberg. I heard that earlier today. I also heard what Big Ankh is saying, Reyes versus Rakic, which I personally would like, because I really like watching Rakic. I love his boxing. I think it's so crisp and clean, and it's really technically sound, so I always enjoy watching him. And then the other person that I heard was a rematch against Polish Power, Blachowicz. Of the 3, I would prefer Rakic, but that's my personal opinion. Do you have a preference?
My line is Rakic, Blachowicz, and then Ulsberg being 3rd and last. And the only reason I want Ulsberg last is because he has so much momentum right now. He's on like an 8-fight win streak in the UFC. I don't want to Dominick Reyes, although he's on a 3-fight win streak, he's still 3-4 in his last 7. And guys, I just don't like to watch these old dogs go against these new up-and-comers with so much strength and momentum. Put him against Blachowicz.
I agree. I actually like that. I like
it too, but Blachowicz is coming off a loss, so there's not that much credibility to the win. If he goes, okay, well, he just beat a guy that's coming off, an injury, that's coming off a loss. But Rakic, on the other hand, I think that is the fight to make. If they make it with Blachowicz, I'm fine with it, but I don't want the Ulsberg fight. I want him to get a little bit more momentum going before he takes on that stud up-and-comer.
The only reason why I like the Blachowicz fight is because he, of course, did lose to Blachowicz, so he could get that one back, and I think that would be an interesting end to that story, to that saga. However, I agree with you. Let's go Rakic. Let's see if they make it. So excited. Like, there were so many amazing storylines and outcomes of this UFC event, and that's why I think it was so special. We see Paddy coming onto the scene, maybe going into the top 6 or the top 5 with endless possibilities, just making the lightweight division explode with excitement. We see Dominick Reyes come back. We see this amazing superhero story of Volkanovski coming back and achieving something that nobody has ever done in the history of the sport in those lower weight divisions. We see this brewing battle between Diego Lopes and Yair Rodriguez, which is totally real. We saw finally it come to a head with Bryce Mitchell versus Jean Silva. Bryce Mitchell walks away defeated. Obviously, I was thinking that he was going to win, but man, with Jean Silva, the sky's the limit. He's got Dana White that's going to be the best man at his wedding soon, and apparently he's going to pay for, I think, the singer or the band or some crazy thing. I don't know if you saw it in the presser. But anyways, I digress. Western says Blachowicz. Oh, am I saying it wrong? I thought I was saying it right.
Am, dude. I pronounced it wrong.
I said Blachowicz. It's Blachowicz. Okay, I apologize. if I'm saying that wrong. I must have heard other people say that.
We're in America. We speak American. All right?
Mutball says Jan should retire. Oh man, I don't know. I don't think Jan's gonna. Well, he might. I don't think he's gonna retire though. He said he loves to fight, and that's why he's doing it. So we shall see. Yes, 205 is definitely getting more interesting. Okay, guys. We are on to the final topic, the most important topic, the biggest topic of the entire show, despite how big the rest of the show has been because of how amazing UFC 314 was. The final topic has arrived, and we are finally here. Khamzat Chimaev versus DDP has all but been announced, more or less. If you guys missed it in the presser, I feel like 99.9% certain about this. In the presser, Dana White was asked, I believe from, I can't remember the reporter's name, but I know him and I'm blanking on the name right now. He was asked by a reporter about this, what's going to happen for International Fight Week. And he says, yep, it's almost done. And then he goes, we'd love to see Khamzat Chimaev versus DDP. Dana White smiled and he goes, that would be fun. Why would he say that unless it's happening? There's no reason for him to be like, hey, that would be fun and tease it and then get people's hopes up and then crash their hopes with a different fight. There's no reason to do that. So I believe that this is straight up evidence. And that's a video I made last night. This is straight up evidence that this is happening. And I think it's going to be the main event. And I'm losing my mind. Justin, what have you heard? What do you think? Do you agree that this is actually going down on June 28th in Las Vegas?
Haven't heard anything, but of course it's the fight that needs to be made, man. It's Khamzat, putting up against Dricus, man. And I don't have a pick right now. I don't know, man. I've lost so much money betting against Dricus that I might just stay away from it. I might follow you on a bet because I know you're probably going to put your house on Khamzat.
I'm gonna put a big. It'll be the biggest bet I've ever made. I'm gonna bet on Khamzat.
So I might follow you in that. Just it depends on the odds. Now, if it's astronomical, if it's like Khamzat's a minus 300 favorite, I'm not touching it. I don't know, man. It's an exciting fight. I can't wait to see the fight. I don't have an opinion on it though, man, because honestly, being a co-host with you, it's hard to ever go against Khamzat because you have so many great points and so many valid points and so many great videos you make about Khamzat of why he's going to be the greatest ever that, it's really hard for me to argue with you regardless of my experience in the sport because you make so many great points. I'm looking forward to the matchup. DDP has answered the call every single time. Not once, not twice, not three times, but every single time. And he just constantly disappoints my pocketbook. And I would hate to follow you in this bet just to have another disappointing pocketbook loss. But with that being said, this is a great fight for UFC International Fight Week. And I tell you what, I'll call around and see if we can get any cheap tickets.
I would love that. Now, I absolutely love that. Yeah, I am considering it, though. I know ticket prices are going to be through the roof. And I've always told Justin that when I do go to a UFC event, I want to sit really up close. So if it's going to be some crazy astronomical figure, I don't know. Oh, well, yeah, we got this quote. I was just about to put this up. So Muttball is on opposite day, so he's saying DDP is going to win this, although I think it is the fight to make. If DDP does to him what he has done to everyone, his stock skyrockets, and the only fight to be made after that is DDP versus Pereira. Okay, let me explain something. I want to make it clear, by the way, I think people get the wrong idea when I talk so favorably about Khamzat in this matchup and where I say that I think Khamzat's going to steamroll DDP, and people take it as if I don't like DDP, and that is nothing could be further from the truth. He's up there as one of my favorite fighters, and I think he's one of the most exciting fighters to watch. I loved his performance against Sean Strickland. He is amazing. He's, I believe, 9-0 in the UFC, undefeated, a legend, and I love his fight style. I love his mentality. I love his trash talk. I like everything about DDP. I just think that Khamzat's going to beat him because I think he's just a little better. He's better. That's it. I think he's got more opportunities and more ways to win. But could DDP win? Absolutely. It's a fight. We don't know how it's going to go down. But if I have to bet, and I will probably bet on this fight, I'm going to take Khamzat all day. And I think people are going to. I don't know. I think people are going to be shocked at what Khamzat does. I just think that people have said over and over. Experts, people like Dominick Reyes, and I don't know if he specifically said this, but Robert Whittaker listen to what Robert Whittaker says. When he finally gives his fight prediction, that's who I would listen to. And if he goes DDP, okay, I'll humbly take it. I'm still not going to agree, but I'll take it as a definite point against me in terms of my perspective, but Robert Whittaker's fought both of these guys. Listen to how he talks about Khamzat, and I think that says it all. Also, certain things that he can do, I just don't think it's sort of like a super move in a video game that nobody can block. Like that, the way that he drops and the speed at which he goes in, and once he grabs a hold of you, he just does not let go because his wrestling is that good. So I think it's a matter of time. He's gonna get on his back. And then I don't know. As strong as DDP is, I think Khamzat's going to take over after that.
I'm not touching it. I don't know. I say that now. I'm a degenerate, the guys. I always say I'm not touching it, and then next thing I know, I'll have $1,000 on the line, and I'll lose, and you guys will hear me cry about it on Monday, and it fucking sucks.
Muttball says steamroll is a strong word. I know, but he steamrolled Robert Whittaker. People would have thought that was insane if people would have said it. I heard one I lost money on. Another one I lost money on. I heard one guy say he was going to buzzsaw through him, and that was MMA Joey, and he was right. So I kind of think, okay, and Robert Whittaker is equally as tough as DDP. Robert Whittaker is crazy tough, and everybody was picking Whittaker to beat Khamzat, and look what happened there. So I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say that he blasts through DDP. So he's undefeated. Yes, he's undefeated for sure. So Khamzat's undefeated too. How much more credentialed could he be? Again, this is not an argument against DDP. I'm saying DDP is the man. I think DDP beats pretty much everybody except Khamzat. So it's no discredit to DDP. Let me be very clear. Massive, massive, massive fan of DDP. I just think Khamzat is like a superhero. I just think he's on another level.
Well, I'm hoping if he comes back to Extreme Couture, we can arrange you to come out to Vegas and do some realtor stuff and introduce you to Khamzat. I think that'd be awesome.
I don't think Khamzat will be going there given what's going down with him and Sean, right?
Yeah, you never know, man. Darren Till and Khamzat came in for a long time, and it will be up to Sean. Like if Sean doesn't want him there, we won't have him. But
I don't think Sean's gonna want him there after all.
I'd like to see him go at it again.
Oh man,
guys, you guys don't even understand, man, how jealous you would be if you've seen the matchups, the fights that I've seen in the gym. I've seen Sean Strickland go with Francis Ngannou, Sadabu from PFL, Jake Shields wrestle with Gordon Ryan. Like, dude, I go into the gym and a lot of these times that like nobody will be in there and it'll be like, I saw Jake Shields and Gordon Ryan go at it head to head. Nobody's in the gym but me. I was closing the gym down like Sean Strickland versus Sadabu, Sean Strickland versus, Francis Ngannou. Like I get to see all these incredible matchups that I can't talk about, man. And, if Khamzat comes back and Sean and him get to go at it, I'd love to be there to watch.
If you guys have any interest in training at Extreme Couture, DM us via Instagram. It's 10-7 MMA, and we'll get you in touch with Justin. Just message him and go train. It's incredible. It's actually pretty crazy. I don't think people realize this, but if you're a super fan, if you want to be around fighters that you love, just go and train at the gyms that they work out in. It's for the most part, you can go in and you can book a private, or you can take a class, and they'll be in the mix. Sometimes they'll even be coaching. It's incredible how accessible a lot of the fighters are. I'm not saying you'll go up and have a 20-minute conversation with them, but like at least they'll be in the air and the atmosphere, and you can see all these amazing fighters train and hone their craft. So if that's something of interest to you, message DM us. That's how I met Justin. Actually,
I'm also doing this thing that I'm calling it the Fighter Experience. It's a week long. You come to Vegas on Sunday. You stay with me for the week. You stay at my house. I make your food, and you go through the preparation of what fighters do. We train all day Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll do a mock weigh-in Friday, and I have you do a smoker fight on Saturday. If anybody has any interest in doing that as well, we can go into more detail as well.
Yeah, so DM us if that's something of interest to you. I highly encourage fans like me to train because it gives you a lot of perspective and it makes the sport that much more fun. No, we can't. He can't talk about those fights.
No. I can't. I can talk about it, but dude, it was awesome, man. It was freaking awesome, man. Neither of them pulled it up. They negated. They wrestled. They grappled for about 15 minutes straight. I didn't see either of them catch a sub, but Jake Shields is very underestimated. And yeah, I remember this, John, when you had Vitor Belfort. I hate Vitor Belfort. He's such an asshole. Like, he's just an asshole. I just don't like him.
Bisping hates him too. He said that he's the biggest dickhead in MMA.
So this is actually funny. Muttball John came into the gym with MMA gloves on, and Ryan Couture was sitting behind the desk, and he walks up to him. He's like, "I'm looking for Ryan Couture. Is he here?" And Ryan's like, "Yeah, I think he's here." And not knowing that John knew who he was. He's like, well, I want to fight him because I heard he hooked up with my girlfriend. And Ryan's like, oh, really? I can't remember, John. You'll probably be able to better than that. And he's like, yeah. And it was a running joke of the girl that he was talking about. And Ryan is very passive. He's very passive. He played it off that he wasn't Ryan, but that was, he walked into his office. He walked into Ryan Couture's office. Look, I'm looking for Ryan Couture. He had UFC gloves on. He's like, I'm trying to fight Ryan Couture. And it was seriously awesome. And honestly, Ryan was scared. I would have been scared too, man. If John Mott walked in to the MMA gym with MMA gloves on, meaning business, I probably would have been scared too.
The good old gym stories, the war stories. All right, guys, that is it for today's show. Man, we had a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Let us know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like this stream. We got 10 people on. If we could get all 10 folks to like the stream right now, it would help tremendously. It really, really helps the channel. Guys, we got to let you know we are growing and we are growing fast. And on top of it, we are having a blast. As of now, we are at 1,794 subs. So if you're watching this, I assume you're already subbed if you're watching the stream. But if you haven't subbed, give us some subs. Let's get to 1,800. We're almost at 2,000, but let's cross over 1,800 first and keep the momentum going. Thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate everything, all the support, all the love. And we will see you guys next time on our show on Friday. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you then. Take it easy.
Why do they call you Big John?
Peace.